If you're watching this video, there are more than likely 3 reasons why you are watching this particular video. You have either been MERPed, are in MERP, or you're worried you may be put into MERP. So give me just a second and I will describe what is MERP. Hey guys, welcome back to Millennial Medicine. My name is Josh and I'm a first-year medical student. Technically, I'm not a first year. I don't start for like another 2 days, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, let's get on to the video. So the big question why you're more than likely watching this video is you want to know what is MERP. MERP is the Medical Educational Readiness Program, and essentially what it is, it's a feeder program. When applying to either Ross or AUC, you can either get accepted, rejected, or you can get a conditional offer of acceptance into the MERP program. Gonna put this out there. I was MERPed. If you're like me and you were recently MERPed, you're probably a little bitter about being in MERP. I mean, I was too. To me, it felt like I had been putting so much effort into finally getting into medical school. I was finally going to get in, and there was one thing stopping me from pursuing my dream of becoming a doctor, and that was MERP. Here's the thing. Can you be bitter that you're in MERP and you weren't directly accepted to a Caribbean school? Absolutely. It is your right. I am not going to judge you how you feel about getting into MERP. But what I can't control are your emotions. Now, why I say that is because I want you to be able to control how you feel and how you attack this program. MERP is an opportunity, then you need to look at it as such. So even though you are MERP, you're not rejected from medical school. You still have a chance to pursue that dream of becoming a doctor. And that is why you got MERPed. Not only does the school believe in you, but you need to believe in yourself that you are capable of passing this program and ultimately moving on to the medical program at either Ross or AUC. Also, key thing, something if you don't know, if you do end up taking MERP and you're just worried about it because it is expensive, I'll get onto that in a little bit, you do get your money back if you fail. So if you fail the program, and it's not cheap, it's like almost 14 grand. You do get your money back if you withdraw or fail out of the program and you don't pass. So if you get MERPed and you're like, I don't know if I can handle med school, and you try it, you start, and you say, okay, MERP's way too hard for me. I don't think I can pass medical school. Great. You get your money back. And it was basically like a trial, and you don't have to worry about anything. You can go about your life. So that's one really good thing about MERP. So I do want to put out a disclaimer. I took MERP in September of 2020, so we were in the middle of the pandemic. Normally, if you were in MERP, you would go down to Miramar, Florida, which is a sub-city outside of Miami. And you would live there for the 3 months that you were in MERP. But because I am obviously taking this during a pandemic, I was lucky enough to actually get to stay home. So the big question, why are you watching this video? What is MERP? MERP, I hate to put it this way, but from my experience going through MERP, it is a glorified weed out program. What does that mean? MERP is essentially testing your ability, whether or not you are capable enough to pass medical school once you go down to the island, either Ross or AUC. Ross and AUC are for-profit institutions. And at the end of the day, the more semesters you pass and if you graduate, they make more money. So at the end of the day, they want to send through applicants that they know are going to pass their program and that they know are going to bring in them the most money. So is it a weed out program? Yes. But not only is it a weed out program for them, it's also a weed out program for you, because you need to make sure that you are capable enough to pass this type of workload. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. MERP was rough. Like, MERP was the hardest program I've ever been in. And I got a degree in chemistry and biology. Like, it wasn't fun. Like, I don't want to sugarcoat it. Was it doable? Yes. Did I make some great friendships out of it? Yes. But it was hard. Like, not necessarily the material was hard. It was just a lot of material thrown at you. And here's the thing. If you can't pass MERP, how are you going to pass medical school? Because from what I've been told, MERP is about 3/4 the speed of medical school. So if you can't even pass MERP, how are you going to pass medical school? So yes, MERP is a weed out program, but it's an opportunity for you to test your ability and whether or not you are capable of passing medical school. And remember, at the end of the day, you get your money back. For example, if you were to go through and get directly accepted, like this semester, you have to take out almost 40 grand for your cost of tuition, school, loans, everything. Like 40 grand compared to 14 grand, that's a lot of money. So if I were to go to my first semester of medical school in St. Martin or on Barbados and I were to fail, I'm going to be out a lot more money than if I were to go to MERP. Why? Not only is MERP a lot cheaper, you get your money back. So it's a great opportunity. All right, so here's another question. What does MERP look like? Now, I want to go back and reiterate on the fact that I took this online, so our format was a little different, but it's roughly the same format. So in MERP, there are 4 classes. It's anatomy, biochemistry, physiology, and microbiology. And each class is broken down into 3 blocks or 3 exams. They call them mini. So you have mini 1, mini 2, mini 3. And obviously it's 16 weeks, so you have a test at about once every 5 weeks or so. There are 10 quizzes and 3 tests. So the quizzes are worth 2% of your grade, and the tests are worth 25, 25, and 30. So for mini 1, 2, 3, 25, 25, 30. So there is a little bit more weight on the final, but there's not as much weight compared to the other exams. Gonna put this out there. If you fail a quiz, it's not the end of the world. I failed one. I bombed it. I think I got like a 15%. I did absolutely terrible. And I still passed MERP. So all I'm trying to say is don't put too much pressure on yourself if you do bad on a quiz. Quizzes are there to test you and to see how you're doing with the material. That way, if you don't do as well on a quiz, you can better prepare so you know that information for the mini or the exams. Here's a note. One thing that I thought was strange, but it really makes sense when you think about it. Even though you have 4 different classes, you actually only have 1 exam. So for example, the quizzes are 40 questions. You get 10 questions from each of the 4 classes. You have 4 classes times 10 questions is 40 questions. Here's the thing. When you're taking the quizzes, the questions aren't in class order. They're scrambled. So you could go 2 anatomy questions, a biochemistry question, an anatomy question, micro to phys. It's a little strange in the fact that I've never taken or had to worry about jumping around on subject like that. But at the end of the day, when you pass MERP and you move on and you have to take step 1, step 2, step 3, and all these board licensing exams, the questions aren't in order. You can go from a pathology question to an anatomy question, so it jumps around. Is it a little different to take a test like that? Yes, but it's going to prepare you not only more for medical school, but it's also going to prepare you more for when you're taking your board and your licensing exams. Okay, so if you're watching this still further, you're going to want to know like your typical day is. So for us, typical day, I'm going to go in like Eastern time, so you'd have 2 classes a day, so you would go to class from 8 to 10, and then from 10 to 12, and then you'd have about an hour or so lunch break, and then after lunch, you would move on, and you would have your supplemental instructions. Like a lot of times, the teachers would put on like question and answering time, so you would go there, and for an hour, the professor would answer any question that people have about that material. It's great. Even if you don't have a question about the exam material or the material, it's honestly great to go because these people are going to ask questions that you may not have thought to ask. And you're like, hey, that's a great question. I would have never thought to ask that. And when you do that, you can almost pick the professor's brain and you can kind of dig out what they think is important material for you to know for your quizzes and your exams. So just a little advice, if you did not go to any supplemental material, the one thing I would tell you to go to that supplemental would be the anatomy questions. For us, anatomy was 2 hours Friday afternoon from 3 to 5 p.m. when I'm ready to be done with school for the week. It was honestly the best 2 hours I spent because I had already taken anatomy in undergrad, but I know a lot of the other students in MERP had never even seen an anatomy textbook. What the professors did is they combined material that they thought was important, and they would give us different ways to look at the anatomy of the body. So they'd give us different pictures and different questions and show us and tell us different ways to make connections that they weren't able to make in class due to the time constraints. So if you don't go into anything, go to the anatomy section. Go to anatomy. It's the best. I don't know how it works for people that are on campus, but I do know for us, my first week of MERP after class, there were these mandatory student success meetings. Essentially what they were mandatory meetings, and one of the professors basically teaches you how to take notes. Let's be real. If you are in MERP, you're in MERP for a reason. You either didn't do well in the MCAT, you didn't do well in your grades, or you basically need a little extra boost before you get into med school. So what this first week does is he teaches you how to look at your material and how to pick out and organize your notes so it makes sense to you. Is it annoying? Yes. But was it helpful? Absolutely. I know from my own personal experience, the first 3 weeks, I kind of ignored his advice and I really struggled with the material. And then afterwards, I went on and I applied what he told us in that first week to my study sessions to make sure that I was better prepared for the exams and the minis. Okay, so I know I've been kind of rambling, but obviously you want to know like how I felt about MERP and any complaints I had. Realistically, the only complaint I had wasn't about MERP or anything within the program. It was something you had to do before starting the program. That's getting financial aid. I know myself and a lot of other students had to get a loan in order to take MERP, and the only provider that would give students money to take MERP was Sallie Mae. Because this program isn't a degree-seeking program, it's basically a feeder program into these other Caribbean schools. It makes it hard for a bank or an institution to lend out money in order for you to take this program. Granted, it was $13,500. So it's not a cheap program. So understandably, banks are going to be more hesitant to give you money since you don't get a degree at the end of this program. I had to go through Sallie Mae and I had to get a cosigner. Now, that's kind of a pain too because they want like really good credit. My credit's okay, but they want like amazing credit in order to get the loan. So that's a little bit of hassle. And it was honestly the biggest complaint I had with MERP was getting funding in order to take the program. At the end of the day, I want to be a doctor. I want to help people. But having this like extra roadblock after I'm already trying to go to a Caribbean school and getting funding was kind of a nightmare. And I almost like didn't do it because of this. So if they could figure out a way to get funding easier for students, I'd appreciate that. That was really my only complaint if you were watching this, but maybe by the time you're watching this, they fix the funding issue. But either way, I got money, so I was able to take it. That's my only complaint. I'll leave it at that. I feel like I'm rambling on, but I really want to say everything for this video. If you're watching this video, you probably want some advice to pass MERP. I passed MERP. I want to help you pass MERP. What is my biggest piece of advice? My biggest piece of advice is to treat this program like you were in medical school. What I mean by that, quit your job, tell your family you're in medical school. Don't tell your family you were in MERP. I mean, obviously they're going to know you're in MERP, but don't go telling your friends you were in MERP. Why? You tell people you're in MERP, you say, oh, if I fail, I got my money back. Oh, that's cool. But here's the thing. If you tell people in your medical school, they're not going to ask you, oh, well, what happens if you fail the program? Like, I don't know how many people I had ask me that. So instead of just saying I was in MERP, I just kept telling them I was in med school. Are you lying? Technically, no, because it's at the rated med school and I haven't seen my friends for the entire program. But you kind of have to get what I'm going at, is you don't want people to think less of this program because it's not medical school. Basically, treat it like you're in med school, treat it like it's your only chance to get in, and study your butt off. Aside from that, other pieces of advice, one thing that I did that I found helpful is that I set a schedule. For me, I'm not really a morning person, so waking up for class is kind of harder for me. So I would wake up for class, eat, watch class, and then I would take a nap. Like after class, I was just kind of worn out because it is 4 hours of lecture. I would prefer to sit down for 30 minutes, take a nap, and then go get something to eat. But my biggest advice is just to set a schedule. Get something that works with your sleeping schedule and the way that you like to sleep. Lectures are mandatory. Lectures are mandatory, so you have to go. So just set a schedule that works with you and that you can stick to. So after your material for like a mini one, they would give you like 4 or 5 days to study. And each day I would assign one subject a day. I would do my easier subjects first and my harder subjects last. That way the material is a little bit more fresh just because it's a harder subject. But that's what I did for me. So just set a schedule, stick with it. You'll do fine. My last little piece of advice for passing MERP. Ask for advice. It's going to sound kind of boring, going to sound kind of plain, but if you are struggling in MERP, the professor's job there is to make sure you pass and you move on to medical school. They want you to pass. They want you to be a doctor. You are struggling in a class, reach out to professors. These professors, once you get to know them, are the most relatable people that you will ever meet, either in undergrad or your medical career. Like, I could consider them friends, but I know we don't because there's a student per teacher interaction, but they're great people. They care about you. One of the professors, so one thing that I did is I formed a group and we would meet as a group, and she sends me an email afterwards and she says, hey, does everyone in the group feel like they got their questions answered? And I was like, yeah, everyone feels great. She said, okay, I just feel like sometimes I can't get to everyone's question. I have never had a teacher do that for me. Like, that was amazing. The fact that this professor reached out and did that was by far the best thing that ever happened. Reach out to professors, let them know you care, let them know you want to pass, and they will guide you and make sure that you pass this program. Now, if it's the day before the exam, don't go having them explain the entire program. Put in some effort. If you put in effort, they will put in effort back towards you. Okay, kind of like piggybacking off what I said, one thing that I did that I thought was pretty successful is I kind of formed a good group of friends. There were about 7 or 8 of us that would study regularly. I have struggled with ours, so just bear with that. We would study together, and on top of that, because everything was virtual, we would meet with the professors 8-on-1 for an hour. And it was great because all of us were having the same mindset that we wanted to pass MERP, and we actually all 8 of us did. And we would meet with the professors on a weekly basis in order to discuss the material. I kind of rambled on. This is going to be one of my longer videos I probably post on here. But the last question I want to ask you guys, well, I ask myself, is would I do MERP again? If it weren't for the financial situation, that whole thing I mentioned earlier, I would absolutely do MERP again. I definitely feel like it prepared me for medical school. Like I mentioned earlier, I actually start in like 3 days. Feel like I should be nervous, but I've already kind of scrolled through some of the material, and I'm like, holy crap, like, we learned that in MERP. Like, I learned that a month ago. Like, I feel prepared more now for medical school coming out of MERP than I did in my 6 years of undergrad. That's another story. We don't need to go into that. I really did like my time in MERP. I made some great friends. I got some great mentors out of some of the professors, and it truly put me in the right mindset I needed in order to start med school. So if you get MERPed, don't get down on yourself. Yes, you didn't get a direct acceptance into medical school, but you still have an opportunity to get to medical school. So I just kind of want to leave it at that. I like my time in MERP. I learned how to study better. I learned how to organize my notes better. And most importantly, I learned how to manage my time better. And when you're in medical school and you're in class for 4, 5, 6 hours at a time, and you only have 8 hours of study, 4 hours of lecture, or whatever it is, like, you have to know how to manage your time. And I really appreciate that MERP gave me the opportunity to hone in my skills so that when I start med school in like 3 days, I'm not scared. Like, my attitude may change in a week, but you know what? That's a week away. We worry about right now. And right now, I'm a MERPer. Anyways, I want to thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you give this a thumbs up, like it, subscribe. I'm going to post some videos, and we're going to follow my journey through a career in medical school. So thanks, guys. Have a great day, and stay healthy.